In the first scene, a man awakens unexpectedly around midnight. His belly button is apparently home to a strange chain-like thing. After removing the entire object, the man had significant bleeding, which caused him to worry and shout aloud. He briefly loses consciousness before disclosing that it was only a nightmare. The woman who is lying next to him, who seemed to be accustomed to these occurrences, simply ignores him. After that, a man named Herman, who aspires to be a great and renowned artist, is introduced to us. His goal is to create remarkable works of art that will profoundly affect viewers and alter their perspectives. He has painstakingly committed his days and nights to this. But tragically, his works of art are consistently disregarded. Herman's mother proposes that he seek advice from his uncle Felix, a successful artist known for his magnificent earrings. After years of failure, Herman, meanwhile, thinks his uncle is a crook, since he exploits his employees for pitiful salaries, while making a big profit from his jewelry business. Later that evening, Herman is browsing the internet when he comes across a job posting. It comes from Devorah Klein, a well-known artist who is on the lookout for a daring new talent. Herman sees this as a perfect opportunity and goes to Devorah's workplace the next day. He encounters her assistant there, who gives him the directive to show Devorah's assistant his creation before she sees it. Herman then pulls back a globe that shows the world's present issues. Unfortunately, his efforts were once again rejected. Herman experiences numerous failures, but he never gives up on his desire to be an artist. But this time, things go in a different direction. Herman hears someone taking a shower in his bathroom the following morning when he awakens. Then, in a startling revelation, his mother says that they were short on cash and had rented out his room to a man. She obviously doesn't support his dream, as this implies. Herman turns to his uncle Felix, the character from the opening scene, because he has no other choice. Felix hears about his hardships and knows exactly what he needs. He claims that Herman needs a quiet area where he can work without interruptions. Then Felix offers Herman the chance to continue working in his former studio, which at first makes Herman happy. His joy, however, is fleeting, because Felix requires $800 in rent each month. Herman joins Devorah's art display in the scene that follows, having somehow managed to finish his most recent creation. He displays his wall-hanging artwork in an effort to make a good impression, but he quickly loses control and makes a complete mess in the exhibition hall. Despite this setback, Herman asks for a second chance and a 2-week window to produce something exceptional. He even makes a promise to give up everything if his art doesn't succeed. Devorah, who is eager to be rid of him, concurs upon hearing this. Herman immediately gets in touch with Uncle Felix and arranges to rent out his old studio for 2 weeks. He arrives promptly at the studio, which is hidden behind the trash chute of an apartment block. Herman is shown into an aged, dusty room with a bed, a mini fridge, and crooked artwork by Layla, Felix's manager. Herman, though, pays little mind to these specifics and advances. He buys enough food for 2 weeks and keeps it in the refrigerator. He started working on his mobile art that very night without delay. Herman fails to make any progress with his artwork as the days pass. His irritation and melancholy eventually worsened as a result. He considers giving up after 13 days of failure, and has even had thoughts of harming himself. But just then, he notices the uneven painting. Although he tries to straighten it, it obstinately tilts back. He throws the painting into a storage room out of frustration. Herman then notices an odd occurrence, a thread coming out of a little hole in the wall. Confounded, Herman checks the other side of the wall, only to discover that it is totally shut. He then pulls the thread, revealing a piece of paper with the phrase, "Relax, I can help." A little jelly-like ball is ejected from the opening, after it has received multiple paper messages. It is attached to Herman's mobile structure, and to his surprise, it becomes balanced. The following day, Herman makes a visit to Devorah's home, after finally finishing his masterpiece. Unfortunately, she won't let him in, alleging that all of his works are trashy. Herman is completely devastated by this, and he practically sobs as he leaves. He gives his creation to a street vendor along his route. The latter displays the artwork, and strangely, within a short period of time, a number of onlookers show an interest in it. Even an impromptu auction is started by them. Soon later, Devorah herself appears and buys the piece of art that received the highest offer. She then employs Herman as her new artist, and expresses regret to him for her earlier actions. Herman arrives back at his temporary home, shouting with excitement and bursting with enormous happiness. A few seconds later, a female voice can be heard coming from the hole, asking him whether things went well. Despite his initial fear, Herman gradually starts a conversation with the mysterious voice, and expresses his joy. She has many more jelly-like balls, the voice says, which can assist him in realizing his long-awaited desire. He only needs to spend time with her in exchange. Herman nods in agreement without a second thought. As the days go by, he develops a strong bond with the enigmatic hole, and spends most of his time there. In the midst of all of this, Lael repeatedly approaches Herman and offers him pie. Though she appears to like him, Herman keeps her at a distance. Herman visits Devorah's show one evening to see his work displayed in front of affluent customers. They appear to be so enamored with it that one of them paid a whopping $50,000 for it. After this triumph, Devorah gives Herman a month to create a batch of these works of art, so that she can stage his solo exhibition. Layla comes to Herman's door at home in the meantime to give him dinner. She enters his room out of curiosity after getting no reaction. She comes across the hole as she's looking around the area. She peeks through it out of sheer curiosity, and sees a projection of Herman emerging from the shower. Layla is abruptly forced to flee the area after the hole spits an unknown substance into her eye. Herman later makes his way back home, anxious to tell the hole the good news. He becomes so preoccupied with his newfound accomplishment that he loses focus on the source of the hole and the voice that created it. Herman now has a strong psychological and emotional attachment to the hole. It soon becomes clear that the hole longs for his company whenever he leaves, and frequently worries about being left alone. She doesn't want to be alone again because it's agonizing, the voice says. Herman assures her that he has no plans to leave after learning of her unease. However, as the days go by, their romance begins to deteriorate. The hole will eventually lose its ability to create the jelly-like balls. When Herman asks about the situation, the voice responds that she is lonely. If there is anything he can do to help her feel better, he inquires. She replies in a startlingly intimate manner, expressing her desire for intimacy. Herman politely declines, but the hole reminds him of his approaching deadline, and insists that he needs the jelly balls to do his art. Herman is forced to accept and ends up falling in love with the hole. Herman has no idea that a man named Joel, who turns out to be Devorah's former best employee, is secretly keeping an eye on him. After Herman assumed his position, he was fired. Joel is furious about this and has been seeking retaliation. Days later, Herman completes his next work of art, and gives it to Devorah, who pays him well for it. Herman doesn't appear to be content despite the cash benefit, because of the complicated circumstances in his life. He is obviously looking for a normal life and relationship. Devorah leads him to a room after sensing his plight and stating her interest in him. She sees them as the perfect couple because Herman is a gifted artist, and she is a prosperous businesswoman. Soon, their discussion turns passionate, and they end up kissing. Herman discovers that the hole is already aware of his involvement with Devorah when he goes back to his room later in the evening. Herman does not attempt to hide anything when she confronts him about the same. He acknowledges that he and Devorah share a special connection, but he also says that he cannot date the hole, because she is not even a human. Herman storms off after a brief disagreement, leaving the disheartened hole to leave additional scratches on the room's walls. The voice approaches Devorah later that day, introducing herself as Herman's partner, and inviting her to the old studio for a chat. The latter accepts and finds it darkly lit setup with a chair surrounded by candles when she gets there. Without wasting any time, the speaker acknowledges that Devorah is only using Herman for financial gain. She goes on to provide great works of art in exchange for Devorah remaining away from Herman in her arrangement. In line with expectations, the crafty woman declines the offer and insults the voice. Devorah collapses as a result of the angry hole sucking up all the oxygen in the space. Herman returns home shortly afterward only to discover Devorah on the floor. She is somehow brought to her senses and driven home by him. Devorah, however, is still unhappy because he thinks the woman hiding behind the walls is his lover. Herman is later seen sitting on a bench in the street and considering the situation. He decides, after much thought, to finally tell Devora the truth. Then Herman visits her home and tells her everything about the enigmatic hole. Additionally, he acknowledges that he lacks genuine talent, and that the arts are essentially created by the hole. Despite this, Herman declares his undying love for Devora, and his wish to spend the rest of his life with her. She surprisingly accepts him as her lover and believes in him. Herman returns to the studio room in the following scene, with the goal of plugging every hole. He finds Joel immediately after entering, who is attempting to use the hole to his advantage. Herman observes this and advises him to avoid it, because he is unaware of the implications. Joel, however, ignores the advice and reaches out to touch the gap. This turns out to be a very bad choice, as the hole quickly drags all of Joel's internal organs inside, killing him instantly. Herman begins to seal off each hole in the room one at a time, after recognizing the threat the hole poses. Throughout this, the voice tries to convince him again and again that Devora is not the ideal spouse for him, and that she is only using him to make money. Herman, however, persists in his course of conduct. He is about to close the last one when he receives an unexpected punch from behind, knocking him down cold. After a while, Herman awakens to discover Devora sawing through the wall with a chainsaw. He asks her why she's acting in such a strange way, and she replies that she wants to take the hole with her. She feels that by doing this, she will be able to independently produce her own masterpieces without the aid of anyone else, not even Herman. He then understands that the warnings from the hole were accurate. Devora was merely using him the entire time. Herman then stands up and makes an effort to stop her from damaging the hole any further. Devora accidentally cuts her fingers with the chainsaw during the altercation, which causes her to flee in agony. Herman feels terrible while the hole screams in pain in the background. He makes an effort to console her by promising to repair the damage, but regrettably, the hole dies after losing a lot of blood through the walls. Herman blames himself for the unfortunate ending, and is overcome with shame and grief. Herman is ready to leave the studio room in the closing scene. He does, however, clean the blood off the walls, and neatly frame the hole as a last tribute before leaving.